step. He jams it. A German hammer and a foul on New York.
Saw it coming. He turned that corner.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we always go into every week knowing we try to go 1-0. So we celebrated. Great. And then we went over to film. And now this week we want to try to go 1-0 at Maryland. They have some deep ball threats and athletic quarterback. So I might have to scramble drill, just use that. And like I said, they have some deep ball threats.
Again, we'll have our hands full with this group because they are a well-balanced team. They're well-coached. Again, they've done a great job of not beating themselves and putting themselves in a position where they're competing for a Big Ten title, which I think, will come down to their game behind our game. I think they play Ohio State the week after us. And so not to put that in their head, but I think they got a big game coming up. So
good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in. It's an afternoon live. We're ready to get things underway. We are closing in on Thanksgiving this Thursday, and we are super pleased here to have on Micheal Spath. If you're watching here on the video, you see him there. If you're listening on the pod, you'll hear him talk hopefully in just 1 second. Micheal, how are you?
I'm great, Dennis, and love your energy. And, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday of the calendar year. I always like to say you get the 4 Fs. You get football, you get fun, you get food, and you get family with none of the stress that comes with Christmas and having that perfect present or all those things that come with it. So I love Thanksgiving. I love the fact that the next day you've got college football on from noon until 8 p.m. I think the Apple Cup between Washington State, Nebraska, Iowa's on, Oregon State, all those things, rivalry week, Michigan, Ohio State a couple of days later. I mean, there's a lot to love about Thanksgiving week. And I think the Lions might even play. We tend to watch the first half in our family and then leave it on in the background as we're enjoying some food and beverage during that second half. Yeah,
I love it too. And I'll even back you up to the Wednesday night, like when you're in college, you leave and go home. So those your friends that you haven't seen that, come back to the area. And then that Wednesday night, a lot of times, I don't know if it still is, but they called it the best bar night of the year.
Yeah, I think they still do. I know that I teach college. I teach freshmen and sophomores at Michigan, and they were all talking about it in our class this past
They're still
week.
going to the bar? They're still going to the bar?
Yeah, someone was complaining to me. They were like, "Oh, Mr. Spath, it was the day after the Michigan Seton Hall basketball game, and they were talking about how they had such a late night." And I said, "How did you even get in the bar? You're 19 years old." And they just kind of looked at me and started laughing. And that goes on. That still happens. And for all of us who are a little bit older, everything that we did in college is still happening in college today.
Well, I'm glad you don't have an early Saturday morning class because people are coming in dragging a little bit, talking about staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning, watching a basketball game, which is going to take place tonight or early tomorrow morning. You could go to the hockey game, come home, take a nap, wake up and watch basketball, go to sleep, wake up, start watching football. It's that kind of weekend here. Let's start you out with football.
Yeah.
Michigan gets the big win at Penn State last week. Final 6 minutes, offense comes up big, defense comes up big. They get the victory there in Happy Valley. They're in a nice position here at 9-1, taking on Maryland tomorrow. Just what are your thoughts here on just where Michigan sits with 2 games to play?
Yeah, I tell you, Dennis, it's really impressive that they are 9-1 because, everybody has said it. They played 3 games, Nebraska, Penn State, and Wisconsin, that in the past, those are the type of games, especially Nebraska and Penn State, that got very tight at the end that they would have lost under Jim Harbaugh previously. And I was one of the many members of the Michigan media, member of the Michigan fandom, that after Michigan fell behind 17-14 and then coughed up the ball again, that we thought, all right, it's over and done with here. This is a typical narrative under Jim Harbaugh, that they fold under pressure. They don't finish a team off. And to their credit, led by Cade McNamara, they had one more great opportunity to go down the field, connected with Eric All on a crossing route, which, as Michigan fans, we've been clamoring for crossing routes ever since Ohio State destroyed Michigan with crossing routes in 2018. Where are they? Where's the speed and space? And this year we've seen a lot of crossing routes. We've seen a lot of passes over the middle. Cade McNamara is not afraid to throw those balls in tight spots. For all the consternation and complaining about his deep ball, he throws an extremely good ball over the middle, and that's what he did in that game. And Eric All, took it the rest of the way. So a great victory for Michigan. people have said like, well, it doesn't count as a big win anymore. The whole Harbaugh narrative, right? Every time he gets a big win, they take it away from him. But, that Washington game, that Wisconsin game, that Penn State game are all big wins for Jim Harbaugh this year. And it sets him up, as you said, in a perfect position. As long as they're not looking ahead to Ohio State, we can, right? We can as fans, we can as members of the media. But as long as they're not looking ahead to Maryland, to Ohio State, then we should be expecting a nice victory on Saturday. And I really hope so. I just really hope that we get the Saturday outcome that we're looking for, and then it sets up this winner takes all opportunity. And you just keep your fingers crossed. You go to church every single day if you're a faith person, and just pray that at some point here Michigan gets over the Ohio State hump.
Yeah, it felt like a big win to me. And you mentioned 2018. In 2015, Michigan needed some help, and I didn't think they were going to win that game with Zeke Elliott and everything else. But in 2016, I did think they were going to win, and they almost did. With the spot. 2018, I said, I'm not going to let my guard down here. But as the season went on, Ohio State's defense looked very susceptible. Michigan was looking really good, and Michigan was a favorite going down there. We know what happened and in that game and everything else. But you sit here, and then heading into 2019, the season, they lost their coach, they lost their quarterback. Michigan had a returning signal caller, and they were at home. Those are our four factors heading into the season. I thought, wow, this, you can't just always say they're never going to beat Ohio State. But then, watching Fields the first couple games there, and then watching Michigan, my thoughts quickly changed. What do you think your thoughts will be after this weekend if Michigan wins and you're heading into the 2021 game? Are you feeling like a puncher's chance, or, how would you put it?
Well, there's always a puncher's chance. And Dennis, you and I, we probably talk to a lot of former Michigan players on a regular basis. And, I know one of your friends and someone you've done some work with, Thomas Gwines and Jared Irons, and all those guys who played in the 80s and 90s. And all of them talk about how that idea that it comes down to, the talent is not necessarily the most important thing. It's who wants it the most, who has the best game plan, and who executes on that particular day. Because there's been plenty of times where Michigan was a good-sized underdog and won those games. The problem is that it hasn't happened very much in the last decade plus. And so nobody thinks of it anymore like that. They don't think about the 95 Michigan-Ohio State game when Tamunga Biakabatuka ran for 313 yards and upset them. They don't think about the 96 game, similar fashion, when they upset a number 2 ranked Ohio State team. All they can think about is being consumed about is the last 10 years. I think if Michigan goes out and beats Maryland like we expect them to do so, and Ohio State beats Michigan State right now, I think they're an 18 or 18.5 point favorite. If those two things happen, as a Michigan fan, for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that week. I'm going to be excited about the week, but I'm going to try my hardest to kind of like keep those expectations like down here, like not feel like my world is ending. The season's a failure if they don't beat Ohio State. Try to just keep it in perspective, and then hope to be delighted by what takes place that Saturday. Now, the closer I get to that game, Dennis, once I walk into that stadium with my brother and we've got our Michigan stuff on and 110,000 people are there, I think in that moment, your emotions just get the better of you. Your logic goes out the window, and all you can think about is, we got to beat these guys. We got to beat these guys. We got to beat these guys. We're going to beat these guys. You get that hope, that excitement, that energy, that belief, that confidence in your team. So, I'll think logically Monday through Friday next week, and then Saturday I'll go full fan mode. Our team's the greatest, and we're going to pull off this upset.
Yeah, at least you're going to lose it. You're talking a good game. Their famous last words, and but all bets are off. I know that. It's going to be crazy watching Michigan State and Ohio State. I want Ohio State to win, but I don't want them to be that impressive in winning. And I want Michigan State. I don't like Michigan State. I want the Spartans, though, to keep it close and have some success where I feel like, hey, maybe Michigan. But I don't know if that matters. I mean, does it matter that Michigan State plays Ohio State tough, or Ohio State doesn't play well in that game? Because it'll be a completely different story the following week. So, how do you view that and the outcome of the game, or just how it looks?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that routinely gets peppered out there is like, well, whatever Ohio State looks like in week 1 through 11, they're always going to play their best football against Michigan. They're going to be geeked for that game. They're going to, you can kind of throw out who they have been for 11 weeks because they're going to play A+ football against the Wolverines. And What I find interesting about that statement, Dennis, is very rarely do I hear someone say, like, well, Michigan's going to play their best game against Ohio State. Michigan's going to go out there and play their A-plus game. It's almost like there's a built-in excuse. Well, Ohio State plays Michigan a certain way. And it's like, well, sure, but Michigan needs to play Ohio State a certain way too. And we really haven't seen it. We didn't see it in 18. We didn't see it in 19. We didn't see it in 15. We saw, honestly, as far as good as the potential, the talent that Michigan had in 16, they didn't play their best game against Ohio State in allowing it to come down to the 1 inch. The best game that they've played against Ohio State has been 2017, when they weren't supposed to have a chance with John O'Korn, the third string quarterback, and were right in it until the end. And so, when I look at this game against Michigan State, yeah, I think you can still see if Michigan State can throw the football against them, if they have success running the football, a team can look at that and say, hey, here are the strategies, here are the game plan that we're going to go against Ohio State. But I don't think we're going to take a whole lot away from what they do, what Ohio State does offensively in this game. If Michigan State keeps it close and it's a 35-28 game, I don't think that really necessarily means that Michigan's going to keep it close and be a 35-28 game. Because I do think that each game is a little bit unique. And certainly Michigan State's a very different team than Michigan. Their weaknesses are not Michigan's weaknesses, and their strengths are not Michigan's strengths. I mean, their weaknesses are that pass defense. Their strength, well, is Kenneth Walker, and then a pretty good passing attack. And Michigan has the rushing attack, but doesn't really have doesn't have the great passing attack at this point.
No, very good points. Before I take you over to basketball, Antoine is making a point here, and you can comment on it if you want. He says, I don't know why Jim Harbaugh doesn't run some type of Bill Walsh style of offense. K doesn't throw past 10 yards anyways. The West Coast offense was made for small quarterbacks with accuracy. What do you think overall of the Michigan offense this year? It's been more of a let's ground and pound and then make plays with play action with Cade McNamara. But I tell you what, you mentioned those crossing routes. He throws a heck of a crossing route.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think you figured out you're 10 games into the season, about to be 11 games into the season. You know what you do well. You know what you don't do well. And what he doesn't do well is throw the deep ball. What he doesn't do well is throw the 15-yard outs. In fact, in that Penn State game, there were a couple opportunities in the third and early fourth quarter where he's throwing an out to Cornelius Johnson or to Roman Wilson, and the ball's either sailing out of bounds, sailing wide, sailing into the ground. Those are things he doesn't do well. What he does do well, where he's created big plays. And you go back and look at the games, the Michigan State game, you look at the Indiana game a couple weeks ago, the Northwestern game, a lot of the big plays, and Penn State was another one, are coming on plays to the middle of the field, crossing routes. Crossing routes is how Ohio State destroyed Michigan in 2018. They threw some deep balls eventually, but they beat them on 3 crossing routes in the first, 15, 18 minutes of that game. And so that's what he does really, really well. And, I don't know that he doesn't throw any pass greater than 10 yards, because I think a lot of those crossing routes and a lot of those balls over the middle are 15 to 18 yards. For whatever reason, he feels really comfortable throwing between the hashes, and he doesn't feel comfortable throwing outside the hashes at all. And he doesn't really feel comfortable throwing, more than 25 yards. But that middle stuff, I mean, we've been talking about for years as Michigan fans, throw the ball to the middle, throw the ball to the middle. There's more bodies there, but if you can throw an accurate, pass there, I mean, you catch it and you've got one safety you got to make miss. There's not a sideline that's driving you out. There's not a guy who has an angle on you. You make one guy miss and boom, you're off to the races. And I think we've seen a lot of that this year for Michigan.
I'll tell you what, he stuck that 21-yarder into Roman Wilson against Penn State. That was a beautiful pass. Man, that was right there. You couldn't have ran up there and set the ball in there any better. And of course, he made a couple of those throws. The Andrell Anthony one, for sure. That didn't travel, whatever it was, 90 yards or whatever it was. But that was a perfect pass as well. You couldn't throw it any better if you were, I don't know, Patrick Mahomes or Jim Harbaugh in his prime. So let me take you over to basketball. Michigan loses to Seton Hall on Tuesday. I was surprised at how much that stung, and just how many people were looking at it feeling like, oh man, this is going to doom the basketball team. Just a couple games into the season. What did you think there? What can they do in Vegas maybe to put the Seton Hall game in the rearview mirror?
Well, I think they could win both games, right? Beat UNLV, as you said, at the 2 a.m. game today, and then whoever they play in the second game. If they come out of it with 2 victories, I think Michigan fans will quickly forget about the Seton Hall loss. I think it stings because it's so early in the year. You're ranked number 4 in the country, and there's grandiose expectations for this program. It's not about finishing 3rd or 4th in the Big Ten this year. It's about winning the Big Ten title. After winning it a year ago, and then going to the Final Four. That's the hope. And what that game against Seton Hall showed is that Michigan has two great players who they should be able to consistently lean on all year. And Eli Brooks, who can do it all for Michigan now. I mean, one of the glue players, I think we're going to be looking back on him and talk about his legacy and what he's meant to this program in a way that, I don't want to get like crazy and say it's a Trey Burke level or even Nick Stauskas level. But there's going to be a lot of really fond memories of Eli Brooks. And then Hunter Dickinson was outstanding in that game too. Probably needs more touches. I saw that Tim McCormick, Michigan alum and ESPN analyst, tweeted out that he needs to get more touches than he did in that game. After that, everybody's got to kind of look in the mirror and figure themselves out. The young freshmen really struggled. Musa Diabate and Caleb Houston both struggled in that game. Devontae Jones, the graduate transfer point guard, struggled in that game. Brandon Johns, who was a senior, who they keep on waiting for that light switch to go on, he struggled in that game. You're not going to be uber successful in college basketball just two guys playing well. You've got to have other guys playing well, and they didn't have anybody else in that Seton Hall game. But I did see, Ken Pom, and I saw this on CBSSports.com today, that Michigan ranks 259th in the country in terms of experience returning from last year. And so, that's a really young team. And that's a team that's going to grow up. And as they grow up, there might be a couple more losses along the way. There might be a couple of more nights like Seton Hall where you're, but Juwan Howard has proven himself over and over again these last couple of years. Like, he's a guy that gets the most out of his team. And he's a guy who's very, very honest. In fact, his post-game press conference, he essentially said, we're going to go look at that film and no one's going to escape that film review. Like, no one's going to go in there and say, hey, I played a great game and just kind of slough off. Everybody's going to look hard at themselves and realize that they need to play a lot better, especially on the defensive end. So I'm excited still about the rest of the season. I wish the game tonight against UNLV was a better time because I got to tell you, I'll get my booster shot in the morning. I don't want to go to bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm probably just going to DVR it and watch it before the Michigan State and Ohio State game tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a pretty good plan. And I agree with you, and I agree with McCormick. I want to see more Hunter Dickinson down the stretch. I was just thinking about, he was an instant star last year, but there are some hairy games there at the beginning, and Michigan went to Hunter Dickinson down the stretch, and they really didn't do that. They had a turnover. He got an offensive rebound, but under 3 minutes to go, they didn't pound the ball down to him. And it's just a reminder. I'll give you one more question. That, last season they came on like gangbusters. They were 11-0. They dragged you in. It was like, wow, this team's awesome. And then they went 18-2. It was just, it was captivating. So heading into this year with the recruiting class, the return of Hunter, they hit the jackpot with their 2 transfers last year. And you're thinking, I just push button, put Devontae Jones in there to be awesome. And, those things can take some time. I wanted to ask you, because coming up, the early signing period is on December the 15th. And, Michigan has this 18th ranked class, at least by Rivals team rankings right now. And there's a lot of, teeth gnashing about the NIL and when Michigan's going to spring this out and when are they going to have this plan and this package. And I would think, just because December 15th is coming up, that if they were going to do something that was going to be explosive and it could really be a game changer, it should be happening here, really quick. Wouldn't you think that would be the case if it is going to happen?
Yeah, I keep on hearing the conversations behind closed doors that are taking place. So there's 2 things to that end. One is Michigan. There's a couple of schools who have already just essentially announced pay-for-play packages, right? Where, hey, you're a football player, you're a basketball player, I'm going to give you some money to endorse my business, and that business really doesn't make sense from an endorsement type of perspective, right? Like it's a massive company that doesn't need one individual endorsing it to get a return on investment. But what they're saying is like, hey, I'm just gonna pay some guys above the table, pay them legally now. And so those are some of the things that we're seeing. Michigan has been pretty adamant they're not going to do that. If you don't have a legitimate business opportunity, their compliance office is going to say no to it, or say that you can't sign it. So that's one of the hiccups that some of the people are running into. And then the second thing I'll say is, Michigan State, Matt Ishbia and Michigan State, and then they recently had one with the women's basketball team for the Michigan State Credit Union. They made some pretty splashy announcements. What I've been told is if this stuff gets done, that Michigan's not going to go out there and make those type of announcements, that they're not going to say that our basketball team has signed a contract with so-and-so, that they're going to use it more to their advantage strategically behind the scenes so that Juwan Howard or Jim Harbaugh can walk into a recruit's home and say, hey, let me show you these 10 guys or these 15 guys, or if it's football, these 25 guys all have an NIL deal right now. This is what they're getting paid. This is what what we can probably do, you can get when you come to Michigan, but they're not going to publicly go out there and splash it all around and say, this is what's happening. Is that the right philosophy? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if it makes more sense just to create the buzz and, have every sports media entity talking about you, or if they can guarantee to some of these young men, and supposedly the what I'm hearing is that Domani Jackson, the 5-star recruit, that was previously committed to USC, has essentially been told, like, you're going to have a name, image, likeness deal here for $250,000 when you come to the University of Michigan. And if they can tell that to a young man behind the scenes, I know that makes a big difference that they're not out there in the public on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on whatever, making those type of big announcements. So, I do think it's interesting, this recruiting class. It has not been a very good recruiting class. I think that's the hit of a couple of years now, where you're starting to see, they hadn't been producing, they hadn't been winning Big Ten titles, they weren't beating Ohio State. And then you had an offense that frankly, in today's college football looks very different than most offenses and is underwhelming. The excitement this year about the running game and the whole thing, and the emergence now recently of Andrell Anthony and Cornelius Johnson and Ronnie Bell. But I mean, at the end of the day, they have a receiver who's got 30 catches. That's a guy who leads them in catches. And you look nationally, and the leaders have 85 catches right now and 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. And Michigan's guy has 30 catches for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, the skill position players are smart enough to look and go, why am I coming to Michigan when I can go to all these other places and catch a lot more balls and showcase myself to the NFL?
Heck, Xavier Worthy had that in one game against Oklahoma, almost matched Michigan's season totals there. Hey, I could talk with you for hours, but you know what? You're not only a teacher, a businessman, a media personality, a content creator. You're a father. You got all these things going on. So your time is very valuable for the people that are watching here. You can see Micheal Spath's Twitter handle on the screen, Micheal Spath ITH. And for those that are listening on the podcast, there it is, Micheal Spath ITH. Michael, it's always great talking with you. Thanks so much for the information and the entertainment. Enjoy this weekend and, get some rest.
I'll do my best. And we all have to be rested up after this one to get ready for Michigan, Ohio State, and all that turkey that we'll be eating. And Dennis, always appreciate it. So glad to see you contributing here at the Michigan rival site, because you do a great job. And I'm glad that you found a home, and look forward to anytime you want to have me on next week, the week after, whatever you want. I'm always here for you, Dennis.
Well, that is appreciated. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend again. Thanks for joining us here. Take care. There is Micheal Spath here on this afternoon live, the Maize and Blue review. Yeah, you can always comment in if you're watching. Antoine has taken advantage of it a few times. And let's see. He wanted me to ask Micheal Spath a question, and I missed the last one. Does he think Michigan has a disadvantage to some degree by having holy standards? Because at the end of the day, they can act like it's just collegiate sports. Everyone else, it's a business. Well, Michael's not here, Antoine, but let me handle that, because getting into the Michigan recruiting spotlight today, I'm going to talk about NIL deals and what Micheal Spath had to say about it. Maybe it could be behind, on the down low, and that particular strategy here. And, Antoine and everyone else, we don't have to go very far, to be reminded about just how big of a business this is. Mel Tucker came in, and he didn't know any of his players' names last year. He beat Michigan on Halloween, and we know what happened a couple weeks ago in East Lansing. The Spartans are sitting there at 9-1, and his name is being thrown around for some of the openings, because he has moved around as a head coach, both at in coaching circles and pros, and then in college. Everybody knows that. And that $95 million deal, it's like, wow, that's an eye opener. Michigan, when you talk about, whatever their standards are and how they want to do it, this is the playing field now. And, for years, a lot of Michigan fans lamented, and I still saw it just a couple of weeks ago when Walter Nolan, the highest rated defensive player, went to Texas A&M. People on the Wolverine Den, the message boards on Rivals, they were like, well, they just paid him. They gave him the cash. Well, you can give him cash now. Go ahead. And that's the thing. Like if it didn't make you feel good over the last 10 or 20 years that almost all of the top 10 programs were going into the gray areas, if not just outright, handing bags of cash, and people are like, no, we're going to be above that, up here. Well, you don't have to be above that anymore. And looking back at it, it's like, hey, people understand, the players deserve something, and now they're getting it. So you're either going to have to jump in there with that, or you're going to have to take a step back and say, yeah, well, we're not going to go into that area. And if you're not going to go into that area and everybody else is actually just saying, yeah, here, we've got the money right in front of us now, and I would think that Michigan, with the reach that they have, the population here in the area, and their desire to keep that stadium full and to keep things going, to pay for the other sports, to pay for the coach, all of that, that they've at least gone over a few the business models or NIL models and just where they want to go with it. But I would think that before December 15th, like don't come out with it on December 14th, come out with it by December 1st, where you've got a number. You go look and you see the 5-star guys, 4-star guys that are still undecided. You get out there, you want to get into the top 10, have a top 10 recruiting class. Yeah. I mean, sure. Relationships, the coaches, all of the different things. Come out with some kind of plan with the NIL. That could talk. You say, I don't know if I want a guy that's just going to come for the biggest deal. Why not? I do. I'll take a 5-star that's coming in because he's looking over and Michigan can get him, 6-figure kind of deal with whoever. It doesn't make me think like it's dirty. It's not dirty. It's how the game is being played. Now, if you don't want to play the game that way, all right. But there has been some talk here that Michigan may get into with the name, image, and license, that they are going to spring NFTs, and this is going to go right into the memorabilia minute too. NFTs are these videos that you can purchase. I've never purchased one. I haven't really seen how it's done, but you get a unique video and it's yours. And there's a lot of people that might watch and say, well, I can see the video on TV. Well, this will be a unique video and it's all yours. So you can have it. It's just like, collecting back in the day. You collect a card. It's a piece of cardboard. Like, what the heck? People are going to pay, 10, 20, thousands of dollars for cardboard. Well, they're doing it with the videos right now too. And, if I had, like you see, I guess there's a glare on that picture back there of George Kell, but if I had a unique video of Charles Woodson running down the sideline, or Trey Burke hitting that, we've all seen the video from mid-court with Trey Burke hitting that one. But if there was another camera angle and that was your video and I had him running on a loop back there and I don't know how much that would cost, but that seems like it would be pretty cool. If Michigan's ready to spring something like that, where they're going to shoot their own NFTs and have their own unique videos and package them up and sell them, and that could be something that they're ready to spring out there, let's see it. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me. That sounds cool. Where's the harm? Where's the foul? Let's go. And, when Damani Jackson comes in, Alabama, their quarterback's got $1 million deal. If Damani Jackson went down to Tuscaloosa 2 weeks ago, they're like, look, you know what? Here's a couple rubber band stacks for you, send you on your way. They can do that. Sign a football. That's how much it's worth. And let's take a couple unique videos of you down here on your visit. So Michigan's got a chance to sway Damani Jackson when he comes up and tell his team, his family, whatever, the whole deal on what they have planned. So, but I would think that Michigan would put something out there before that, and it could help in recruiting. So that's the way I see it when it comes down to it. So that's the recruiting spotlight. It goes right into the memorabilia minute where I take one thing and talk about it for a minute. And that would be it. Like these NFTs, you might think I would never pay for a video. I wouldn't pay for a baseball card. That's okay. Yeah. But there are people that like memorabilia, and to have your own unique video is something that is attractive to the younger generation, can be. I know I was talking with Anthony Wright on this show. What was it, 2 weeks ago? And he said, I forgot what the app was or whatever it was, but you can, and maybe you can do this with all Michigan players now. You can just call up or hit him on online and say, hey, Anthony, would you just say something to a big Michigan fan? And just think about it. You get Hunter Dickinson. If you could go and just hit Hunter Dickinson up online and say, and Hunter would say, I don't know, you pay him $100 and you say, hey, I want to wish Dennis Fithian a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Go Blue. Thanks for being my number one fan. From Hunter, with a video from Hunter. If that's worth $100, that sounds pretty good. Put that under your tree. Put that in your stocking. However you do it, you just send a little app with a little present. Next thing you know, you're opening it up, and it's Caleb Houston saying, "Go Blue." Thanks so much, Antoine, for being a big Michigan fan. So, something to keep an eye on. Michigan, going back to recruiting just for a second, they were as high as 17 when they had 18 commitments, and then they lost a wide receiver and it dropped them down to 18, and then they were down to 21, but they just got a 4-star linebacker in Jimmy Rolder, and the team rankings, they are up to 18 with 18 commitments. And we are, I don't know, say fastly or quickly closing in on December 15th, but here we go. We got the penultimate game this weekend. We got Thanksgiving. We got the Ohio State game, and it's going to be here before you know it. So all of that. All right. If you like hockey, we're going to have a Michigan Hockey Live from Yost Ice Arena coming up in an hour. And Micheal Spath mentioned Thomas Gwines. Thomas Gwines, the former Michigan offensive lineman I saw, was doing a video with Steven Osentowski last night, our video analyst. They were, drawing things up on the screen and going over some plays. I'll talk with Thomas Gwines tonight at 7 o'clock. It's going to be called Michigan Tonight, live with myself and Thomas Gwines. We'll talk about Michigan football. And then one more reminder that the game tonight, Michigan against UNLV out in Vegas, the main event, ding, 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 the main event out in Vegas is going to start at 12:30. If you're somebody that's watching this for the first time or listening, I have said that after every Michigan football and basketball game, about 10 minutes after, I go live and talk about the game. Well, tonight's game is not going to end till 2:30, 3 o'clock. I'm going to go on tonight after the game. So if you are somebody that watches the game and wants the Michigan talk to continue, you can check it out live after the game. Or if you're like, that's crazy, I'm DVRing the game, I'm watching it tomorrow morning, I guess, Saturday morning, and then I'm going to watch football, whatever else. Know this, that if you're out and you're trying to get whatever it is, get to the gym in your car, pop up that TMBR podcast, and you can listen to me for, 15, 20 minutes on that podcast, talk about everything that I saw with all of the players. I'll have an opinion on everybody that plays tonight for Michigan and on the game. I also have a friend of mine that works out in sports radio in Vegas. He's going to join me after the game, so we'll get his thoughts on what he sees from the Wolverines as well. So all that going on tonight. Got hockey coming up at 3 o'clock. Got Michigan tonight. Thomas Gwines will be talking football, and then late tonight, we've got a basketball post game. And tomorrow after the Michigan-Maryland game, I'll be on after that game. So a lot of it's a great weekend. A lot of Michigan talk. That's why we're here. Thanks to Micheal Spath for joining me. Thank you for watching or listening. And we'll talk soon. See you later. Gonna hit end broadcast.